We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation. Bring news just for you. It's Thursday, July 11th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin and you're watching News Generation. Today we're joined by Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you. And Yoon Se-young.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Now both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. Now as usual, we're going to start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items trending online. We begin in France, where workers at Paris Charles de Gaulle and Paris Orly airports have announced a one-day strike on July 17th. The conflict between the workers and management comes from demands for increased bonuses during the Paris 2024 Olympics period and additional staff recruitment. Now, if the strike takes place, it is expected to cause significant disruptions for athletes participating in the Olympics and for spectators arriving ahead of the opening ceremony on July 26th, as these airports will serve as the main gateways into the country. Back here in Korea, the largest labor union of Samsung Electronics has announced an indefinite strike. The National Samsung Electronics Union, representing 30,000 members, nearly a quarter of the company's workforce, said on Wednesday that it will extend its original 3-day strike, which was set to end on the day, citing the management showing no intentions to engage in dialogue. The union is demanding better pay and benefits for its members. Finally, Korea's largest food delivery platform, Baemin, will raise its commission fee for registered stores to 9.8%, an increase of 3 percentage points starting next month. This means that for a 20,000 Korean won order placed through the app, store owners will now pay 1,960 won to the platform. When including value-added tax, this amounts to 10.8% per order. Baemin says that the fee hike is necessary to remain competitive with rivals like Coupang Eats and Yogiyo, which charge 9.8% and 12.5% commissions respectively. So back here in the studio, I want to first ask you, how are business owners reacting to this change?
Well, as Baemin's commission fee has matched the already high rates of Coupang Eats, self-employed and those who run the small businesses are really strongly protesting against this new announcement. They argue that after paying for fees, utilities, delivery charges and rent, there's nothing left, saying it's not acceptable that the platform companies are raising commissions even further by overusing their power, and when the business owners are already struggling to stay afloat. And additionally, online they are expressing negative emotions, saying, "I hope a new app comes out to replace Baemin soon." And why do self-employed people always have to bear the losses? And we need policies to keep these platform companies in check and protect the small business owners.
Right, definitely. This seems like it will be a more burden. It will be more burdensome for the business owners, and this is sparking new concerns among consumers as well, because this could lead to further price hikes of food items, right, Walter? So are you concerned as well?
I'm very concerned, and I guess we both are very concerned.
Right.
Regular users of the app.
I'm like an active user of the
An
app.
active user, and obviously if the price hikes go up, then we might have to go back to the regular old cooking again.
Which I'm really bad at.
Which I don't know if I can do during this time of being very, very busy. But yes, as a person who uses these apps on a regular basis, I do worry that it might increase the prices of menus, but I do sort of understand it from the side of the restaurants as well, because they obviously don't want it as well. So yes, hopefully we see other competitors either get into the game and make it less expensive for people like me and you. But yes, I don't want to go back to regular, ordinary cooking. I'm happy with ordering in.
Right.
Fun sometimes.
Yeah, it can be fun sometimes. Yeah, so we'll have to see how this situation plays out. We'll have to keep a close eye on it. And that was our news feed for this Thursday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day. Previously here on NewsGen, we talked about the importance of physical health, for example, covering topics like skinny fat and healthy eating, but just as important is our inner well-being. Let's take a look at the screen to find out more. Last month, the Korean government officially launched the Presidential Committee on Mental Health Policy Innovation. It aims to reduce the stigma around mental illness and seeking mental health services, broaden eligibility for state-backed mental health checkups for young adults, and expand the number of psychiatric emergency service centers and counselors. It's the first time a presidential committee has been dedicated to mental health in a country with one of the highest suicide rates globally. With the government's strong focus on mental health, today we're going to explore how millennials and Gen Z are managing their mental well-being. So today we're going to talk about mental health, and when we talk about this issue, stress is actually a key component since many say effectively managing stress is essential for good mental well-being. So let's first talk about a recent report that analyzed major stress factors among millennials and Gen Z. So Walter, could you please tell us more about the report's findings?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So if we take a look at the screen, we can actually see there are certain reasons why people are stressed out these days, and they are long-term financial conditions, with around 45% of people are responding to that. Things like, trying to buy a house, if you have a family, thinking about child's education fees in the future, and of course, the inevitable retirement. Now, daily financial conditions come in at 42%, like paying the bills of your everyday, inflation on everything, everyday stuff, even, ordering in, that is going to be something that is going to be, we have to take into consideration.
Getting expensive every day.
Expensive, everything's getting expensive. And work, of course, now this can come down to things like pay. Now, we're not getting paid enough, or maybe it's too little. Workplace dissatisfaction as well, worrying about one's job status. That's also another reason why some people can be stressed in those situations.
Right. Looking at the findings, I think that I can definitely relate to some of the biggest stress factors that millennials and Gen Z respondents gave in this report. Now, Taeyong, is there any other thing that you'd like to add or introduce to our viewers regarding this finding?
Yeah, sure. Financial and livelihood issues are undoubtedly the biggest sources of stress, but following that, the disruption of work-life balance is also a significant factor. As a result, many Gen Z employees report that their mental health has deteriorated due to work-related stress, which can also lead to a burnout.
Right. So long-term financial stability, issues regarding money, and also workplace environment are some of the major causes of stress among our generation. That is according to that report. Now, here in the studio, as you guys are representing millennials and Gen Z, the younger generation, I want to ask you, do you also resonate with the results?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I worry about these sort of things on a daily basis, and I wouldn't say they are my number one stress at the moment. I think my daughter is my number one stress. Love her to death, however, she is very stressful. But for me, recently, also working, which is I mentioned before, is a large part of my stress. And being a freelancer, as we all know, it has its perks, but one of the biggest downsides is your job stability, and that you can lose jobs quite quickly and unexpectedly, and that means that you could go without getting paid for that month. And both Seong and I are family people, so we need to provide for our family. So on top of that, it brings a lot of stress.
I see. Now, what about you, Seong? Do you also resonate with these findings too?
Yes, my greatest stress also stems from tighter financial management these days. Prices keep rising, but our salaries remain the same. And especially when I go grocery shopping, I can see that just a few items cause the total amount to skyrocket.
Right.
And as a parent, I want to provide my children
you want to give the best.
Yeah, fresh, healthy ingredients, but the groceries are too expensive. And that's when the stress really hits. And I believe this isn't just something that housewives or parents experience. And additionally, it's been said that young people these days feel stressed because they can't really find a balance between work and life. But in my case, what's even more stressful than not having my own time after work is finding someone or an institution who can take care of my children while I work, especially when I have to work after my children come back home from kindergarten or daycare. It's just really emotionally and mentally taxing.
Right. So this is another factor that is stressing out the younger generation. Now, to even expand our talks, we also asked our viewers what stresses them out the most, and here's what 3 of them had to say. So if we look at the answers from our viewers, Benny says the biggest cause of stress is having a hard time overcoming the heavy traffic jams and long lines at the bank. These are common causes of stress here in the Philippines these days. Leon says the rising cost of living is consistently ranked as a top top stressor for Singaporeans. Another cause is work-related stress, as the fast-paced and competitive work environment in Singapore can be demanding. Tasmia says definitely inflation, because it's making us worry about whether we are able to pay rent for food, medical services, transportation. Even if we are able to pay it, the worry constantly haunts us. So looking at the comments, it seems that we are sharing common stress factors, millennials and Gen Z, from other parts of the world. Now, for more insights on some of the more factors influencing the younger generation's mental health and how to manage it properly, we're now going to bring in an expert in psychiatry. We'll be right back after the break. We're back. Today we're joined by Dr. Kim Jong-jin, Adjunct Assistant Professor of Psychiatry at the University of Minnesota Medical School and Faculty in Addiction Psychiatry at Harvard Mass General Brigham. Welcome, Dr. Kim, to the show.
Hello there.
Great. It's lovely to have you back, Doctor. So our first question for you today is the stats we discussed earlier in our show showed that financial issues are the biggest causes of stress for the younger generation. So why do you think this is, and are these factors the same for millennials and Gen Z in other parts of the world as well?
Sure. When I talk to, I'm in the United States, so I can only speak to United States. But when I talk to a lot of my younger clients, a lot of them do indeed come to me with financial concerns or mental health issues related to financial concerns. And a lot of that is actually grounded in reality of things. As we all discussed, the cost of living has skyrocketed, coupled with global inflation. And many of them are unable to put away savings, or have to incur debt, have to raid their retirement savings for basic purchases. Many of them have side gigs and really do not have much of a work-life balance, so to speak. And there's also this general sense of decline in economic opportunities and fear of uncertainty about the future. As we all know, we are seeing the ascension of artificial intelligence and all sorts of disruptive technology and what that might mean for the future of our jobs. And a lot of the companies and employers are downsizing, slimming down, and making cuts. So all of these trends tend to converge to this general sense of helplessness. If you can look forward to something, it gives you hope. But if the recurring message is that no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, it's a permanent uphill battle, that can be quite demoralizing.
Professor, there's obviously this stigma from the older generation about the younger generation being weaker, or they're not as strong as the older generation. Do you think that millennials and Gen Z are more vulnerable to stress? And if so, why?
I do not want to make any generalizations, but one could argue in that direction. For example, we know that they are particularly more vulnerable to financial stressors, and that can really have an emotional and psychological toll. If you're cash-strapped, it will affect your self-esteem. It will affect your relationship with other people. It will have collateral damage in terms of limiting your pursuit of social activities or hobbies and what have you. And then there's also this unique feature of the younger generation, which was that they were disproportionately affected by a pandemic, which has really scarred many of us mentally at a population level. I would even say that it has really scarred us and has caused a mass PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, at a population level. So all of this is to say that, we could make an argument in that direction, but of course, each individual is different.
I see. Then from an expert's point of view, what do you suggest to help alleviate the stress?
Yeah, so when I talk to my clients, the first thing that I emphasize is getting good enough sleep. So that's the number one thing, getting good 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. And I start with sleep hygiene, making sure that you're not looking at your cell phone or watching your monitor for at least 30 minutes to an hour before you go to bed. And then on a more practical level, if you are worried about a lot of different things, some individuals do tend to be a bit of a worrywart. So for those individuals, I do counsel them to get a piece of paper and make 2 columns. And there are typically two types of worries. One is worries that you have no control over. So make a column for worries that you have no control over, and make another column for worries that you do have some degree of control. And for the worries that you do have some degree of control, make an action item list and try to get those things accomplished. And as you're doing those, get a big fat marker and cross that out. And you can see it visually that you're actually actively managing your life. So that's one practical thing that I do counsel. And lastly, I do emphasize that what we are always seeking is a life grounded in peace and contentment. And ultimately that converges down to finding something that's meaningful. And that can be something very small, something as small as saying thank you or being grateful to little things. So I try to start from there.
Some very great advice. I think I will follow your recommendations starting right today. All right, Dr. Kim, thank you so much. It's always lovely to have you on our show.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so coming back here in the studio, I think that stress is inevitable. We can't not have stress in our lives. So I think that the best solution right now for us is finding ways to alleviate it wisely with methods that suit you. So I want to ask you, what are some of the most common ways the younger generation is implementing to deal with stress?
Well, when we look at how the young people relax these days, it can be summarized as doing nothing and just letting go. And one popular method these days is called bed rotting, where you just lie in the bed and doing absolutely nothing.
Sounds comfortable.
Yeah. Also doctors say there are some pros and cons of it, but it sounds really comfortable. And another trend from a few years ago includes 물멍 and 불멍, when you just simply stare at water and fire and just space out like Soa, the champion of the 2024 Space Out
who appeared on NewsGen.
Yes, and additionally there are practices like yoga, meditation, and getting a massage. And to be honest with you, I love a massage right now. I think it's one of the best ways to relieve your stress.
Right, so I think these are some of the more calming ways that our generation is using to relieve stress. Now, Walter, are there any other active ways that that our generation is using to alleviate stress?
Well, it turns out cooking is something that the younger generation are really into these days. It's actually a really good stress reliever because if you are a good enough cook, at the end of the cooking, you get to eat what you've just cooked. But if you're not a good cook, then maybe it's best not doing
like
this.
Me.
I know for me, it's very therapeutic to cook. I love to do it. And at the end of it, as I said, I do get to eat something really nice. But other ways to take up, or get rid of stress is to take up hobbies like hiking, climbing, other activities either that challenge you or help you take your mind off the everyday dramas that come with life and one might have.
Like feeling the mother nature itself.
Exactly.
Right. And besides these methods, I want to ask you guys, what do you do to get rid of your stress factors?
Well, these days I relieve stress by traveling abroad with my husband and 2 kids, although it can be sometimes challenging because the kids are still young. But I've experienced the healing power of travel, especially with the family, because we get to enjoy a lot of delicious food surrounded by this exotic atmosphere, and you don't have to worry about household chores, and most importantly, I don't have to worry about finding someone who can take care of my children. And so I love traveling these days. And additionally, I try to make sure to carve out a few hours each week just for myself, and I think it's really important too.
Right. If you have a family, I think having alone time or me time is really important. It's kind of like the time where you can search for yourself and find your inner peace once again. Now to you, Walter, what kind of methods do you use?
So I cry.
Okay. Oh, but I heard that it really helps. It really helps.
Actually, it does really help, but no. Honestly, I don't actually have great habits. For me, I sadly have developed bad habits to relieve my stress, like stress eating.
Eating 4 ice creams.
Eating 4 ice creams, if we go back to the time where I said that I ate 4 ice creams, that was a stressful day, but I'm trying to change my habits. And like I mentioned earlier about the activities, go for a walk. When I get the chance, at least get some fresh air in some sort of way. Try and get a nap in sometimes. Napping is great. I know that you like to lay in bed all day.
Right, so, I do.
I know that's a great way of getting rid of some stress. But yes, those are the main things I'm doing. Trying to change my bad habits into good habits.
Well, I'm just following Dr. Kim's advice of having a good enough good amount of sleep.
Yeah,
So
I think you push it too much, though.
okay. Well, anyways, ending off, this may seem very obvious, but to emphasize its importance once more, why do you think we need stress management? Why is it important?
Well, they say stress is the root cause of all illnesses. And I know it's not easy, but let's just try to think more positively and enjoy each day and try to find something good in every day and freeing ourselves from stress to stay healthy both mentally and physically.
Right, because mental health is as much as important as physical health to be a healthy person. Now, what about you, Walter?
Yeah, well, there's not much for me to add on. She said it perfectly there. But in my opinion, I don't know if the professor would agree with me. I feel like we need a little stress in our lives as a way to help us get through the day.
Like a motivation.
Like a bit of motivation. If you're, have a project due coming up, that little bit of stress might help you get going and get started. So I don't mind a little bit of stress, but obviously, clearly, excessive stress is bad for us and turns your hair grey like I'm going myself, or even bald, which I believe you're talking about tomorrow, but that could be a reason for stress as well. Yes.
Right. So I hope our discussion helped our viewers think about stress management once again. And expanding on what we've discussed today, tomorrow, as Walter briefly mentioned, we're going to talk about hair loss, which is often brought on by extreme stress. So join us tomorrow once again at 9:30 a.m. Korea time for more. As for today, special thanks to Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
And Yoon Se-young.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.